katawan, puso at isipan. That is why I am withdrawing from the race.
Vice presidential aspirant and Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte has named her senatorial picks for next year's elections. This includes former Palace spokesman Harry Roque, former Senator Jinggoy Estrada, resigned DPWH Chief Mark Villar, and former Defense Secretary Gilbert Teodoro. Meanwhile, President Duterte, who was also among Mayor Sara's top picks, has officially withdrawn from the senatorial race.
President Duterte has formally withdrawn his candidacy for senator in the 2022 elections after he was endorsed by his daughter, Davao City Mayor and Vice Presidential candidate Sara Duterte, and after his longtime aide, Senator Christopher Bongo, officially withdrew his candidacy for president. What comes next? After these political developments, we will discuss in this episode of The Chiefs. Welcome to The Chiefs. I'm Robbie Alampay. With us online from Manila, Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star, and here in Mandaluyong, Ed Lingao of One News. Chiefs, happy
Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. Oh, and happy Tuesday talaga. I mean, 238, I think, new cases of COVID today.
Okay.
Another record low. Pero Ami, ano bang headline bukas?
But on the other hand, sa UK, nag-report na sila ng Omicron death, no? The first. Kaya sabi nila, wag muna daw masyadong complacent about the less, yung teorya na less virulent tong Omicron.
Okay.
So, tayo rin siguro kailangan medyo mag-ingat-ingat. Yun din ang message actually ng Department of Health.
Yeah, they've been consistent naman there. But do we know kung ano yung
profile
anong profile ng yung namatay?
Ay, wala nang detalye. Wala pang detalye from the UK. We're waiting. Pero basta sinabi nila it's because of Omicron.
In the meantime,
na hindi nakamamatay.
in the meantime, Ami, I imagine bukas politics na naman, front page na naman. How do you make sense? How will the stories make sense of what happened today?
Yan ang gusto nating malaman sa mga guests natin ngayon.
And of course, one big question from today's developments, bakit nag-taxi lang si Bongo? Unang comment.
Para yata hindi siya maharang daw ng mga hindi ba? Ng mga niya, supporters na gusto siyang i-persuade na wag tumuloy.
Ano yung sabihin, yung driver niya kasama dun sa harang sa kanya.
Sige, steady mo lang yung tanong na yan. Mamaya, we will get to that question, among other questions. But we will begin tonight following through on our story with BDO. We have tonight with us Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas Technology Risk and Innovation Supervision Department Director Melchor Plabasan. Good evening, Mr. Plabasan.
Yes, good evening, Ami, Ed, and Robbie.
Magandang gabi, sir.
Yeah. Sir, so anong latest sa what happened with BDO? What do we now know? What do we still do not know?
Yeah, we already started our investigation, and as mandated by the governor, we need to finish the investigation in 30 days. No? So, as you know, kasi this requires forensic investigation. So it will really take a while before we get to the bottom of the issue. But definitely there are quick wins na, and some of them are happening na. The first one is, of course, to stop the bleeding. BDO was able to identify yung affected web service, so nag-stop na yung bleeding. Of course, second is the restitution of the clients who have, unduly affected clients. And based on the news, I think 700 clients were already identified and were requested to proceed to the branch to get the reimbursement. And third, of course, one of the quick wins then is for us to, because the real persons behind Mark Nagoyo have already been identified. So I think BDO and the other institution, Union Bank, will definitely file charges if these persons allow their accounts to be used for this fraudulent activity.
Okay.
Can you clarify that? Na-identify na kung yung tunay na Mark Nagoyo? Is that correct?
Yeah, the people behind,
The bank
accounts, the owners of the accounts
Yes.
where these funds were funneled have already been identified.
Okay. So
Can you give
linawin
us
lang.
more details? Kung ano sila, are they bank employees or are they individual account holders, person, group, or ano yun siya?
So far, based on what we saw, individual account holders, but we have yet to. I think they are not bank employees, and they just opened their accounts recently. Some of them opened last October.
Okay. But you keep saying they, it's always in the plural, so it is more than one person and it is more than one account?
Yeah, there are more than one accounts and more than one account owners. There are, I think, 2 or more.
Okay.
Two or more.
In the meantime po, let's say, again, do sa modus po. Yesterday, we're proceeding from a lot of people concluding very early on na this was not a phishing
Expedition.
case. And therefore, it is not the victims who are to blame. And they were therefore saying it's really about the systems of the bank. Tama pa rin po ba yun? And what do we know more now in terms of what exactly was targeted in which way with the systems?
Alam mo, Robbie, as early as I think early this last week, we have already been monitoring sa social media about the rising number of complaints. And definitely, based on our monitoring, these people did not provide their credentials. They did not receive OTP. They did not click on let's say phishing emails. So yung mga links sa phishing emails. So, and as admitted by BDO, there was a web service that resulted in this what they call sophisticated fraud technique. So definitely it's not related to the recent spate of phishing campaigns or phishing attacks.
Sir, when you say web service,
Yeah.
when you say a web service was involved, what exactly do you mean? An ISP was involved? A specific
Yeah.
IP address was involved? Or was it a system or an operating system of some sort or a software that was involved?
Yeah, when you say web service, kasi normally to run, let's say, a mobile banking facility or an internet banking facility, you need several applications or systems. That's a lot of components. And for these systems applications to talk to one another, you need that web service. That particular system or application, that's the one that has been allegedly affected.
So naka-base sa Philippines tong mga to, hindi siya international.
Again, Ms. Ami, as I mentioned, we just started our investigation yesterday. So hopefully, within 30 days, we can get to the bottom of the issue and really identify the root causes of this incident.
Have you encountered similar cases? Kasi ang inaalala ngayon ng mga tao, baka it's a contagion na umabot sa ibang bangko. Is that possible? Is that fear valid?
Actually, that's why nga we have been working closely with the different institutions. Kasi nga, not to downplay naman, because cybersecurity has become a constant battle kasi, especially for the banking sector. We have the banking, especially the big banks, they have become what we call lucrative targets because obviously this is where money is. That's why, and yun nga, we have been closely coordinating with them to ensure that they are implementing robust standards, particularly on security, AML, etc. So that's what we are trying to prevent. Really, it's really to prevent the contagion impact of this particular incident.
Sir, minalas lang ba ang BDO dito in the sense na sila ang na-target? I guess the other side to that question is, how does their infrastructure and systems compare with the online banking systems of other banks in general?
Actually, sa totoo lang, our banks have been investing billions of pesos really to fortify their security defenses. Actually, it's a good and bad. I think it's the disadvantage of being the number one, having the largest customer base. So hindi mo maiiwasan talaga that you will be targeted really, not only by organized criminals but even state actors.
So it's not as if any of the banks involved were not compliant with any of the protocols and standards set by the BSP.
That we will have to, again, it's very premature to say it right now. But then if we later find out that there are, let's say, non-compliance with our expectations when it comes to managing cybersecurity or money laundering risk, then we can always resort to imposing sanctions or penalties.
Sir, I think a few people were quite surprised that the amounts involved appear to be relatively small, considering what the hackers were able to do, which was to circumvent the actual system. Hindi siya phishing eh. It was the actual system they were able to get into and corrupt, and they were able to get the money. I'm wondering lang, why were the amounts not as substantial as they could have been, assuming that what we've been hearing are correct na mga 150,000 and so yung nakuha lamang, wouldn't they have tried to get a bigger amount, or was this some sort of a trial balloon or a trial effort?
Kasi di ba normally, you need to siphon the money. So right now, the way they did the siphoning really is to use InstaPay. And sa InstaPay, di ba, it's a small value fund transfer facility.
Yeah, may limit. Yes,
so
sir.
yeah, the limit is 50,000, and you can only transfer, I think, 50 or 100,000.
Yes, sir.
In a day. So
Yes, sir.
ganun lang talaga ang
Yeah, that much we got yesterday. Pero I was wondering about that. Now, if they were able to circumvent the system, wouldn't it have been safe to assume that they could have also circumvented yung limit?
Because, but circumventing the system is one thing, but also yung
The parameters of the
pulling the money out of the system is another thing. You have to utilize channels like fund transfer facility in order for you to do that. And there are limits, particularly on InstaPay.
Yeah. Speaking of InstaPay, so InstaPay is basically just a conduit, no, between the two banks. It's not the accounts of the banks itself. But as pointed out yesterday by one of our guests, pagka nag-transfer via InstaPay, we all know by now Mark D. Nagoyo is not a real name. It's not tied to any real account. It's tied to a real account, but it's not a real name. And yet, yun yung ginamit na name. And he said, actually, it doesn't matter kung anong pangalan ilagay mo sa InstaPay. Does that create a vulnerability within the layer of InstaPay, or does the name of the beneficiary not actually matter?
Yeah. The original intention kasi, since this is small value system, since this is small value fund transfer facility, and yun nga,
Mr. Bongbong Marcos with what, 50% rating? And normally we don't talk about these things with supporters, but in this particular case, kasi medyo kakaiba because Mr. K is talking about a survey that does not serve his campaign's own interest. So let's begin with that. What survey was he talking about? What survey are we talking about here? And what does this tell you about your campaign?
Would you like to answer, Attorney Arnel, or shall I?
Oh, go ahead, Jess. Go ahead, Jess, please.
Thank you, sir. The survey is an informal and unofficial survey that although credible, that Harvey has seen, and I have seen it myself. Yes, I think very apparent yung lead ni Mr. Marcos, and that is known by everybody, and that is really felt. But one thing I would like to stress is that of the survey, the same survey, yung increase ni VP Lenny has already doubled. We remember we started at 8%. In 2016, we even started at 1%, and it's already doubled. And what we found out is that there's a lot of really good people really coming in right now and expressing goodwill and expressing radical love and expressing compassion towards the campaign. As a matter of fact, right now, the volunteer management has their hands full. One volunteer group has more than 40,000 volunteers. These are vetted real volunteers. And we are gaining ground. Ang lamang ho kasi nila dito, sabi nga nila, lamang sila sa paligo. Nauna po sila nag-organize, matagal na sila nag-organize, pero yung ating pong principal, kaka-yes lang nung nakaraan, parang noong 2016. Attorney Anel, baka siya. Has something to add.
Yes, thank you, Jess. No, thank you also for that observation. Yes, we understand that this is a campaign. No, we have accepted that, and as mentioned, our candidate has just recently decided to join the fray, and but we have seen an explosion of support, and we have surveys, and then I do my own survey myself. For example, I just went to the grocery 3 hours ago, and I have talked to the employees of the supermarket, and also did my own survey. And out of the 10, there's only one bongbong, and a lot of them are still undecided. And then there are 3 Lenny supporters. So that means there's still 6 out of the 10 that I have talked to on real time in my personal interaction with voters, that there's still a lot of votes that need to be converted. And since we are on the upward trajectory, then we need to do a lot of work on the ground to actually convert this volunteer force and positive force into votes in May 2022.
Yes, sir. Pero sir, well, assuming na accurate yung 50% na kay Bongbong Marcos, before this kasi, well, analysts were talking about parang a good number would be 30% plus for somebody to win the presidential elections. If Bongbong is hitting already 50 plus, that's quite a big obstacle for you guys to
Make up.
Medyo malayo
Yes.
pa. Kumbaga, kasi sabi ni Atty. Dumoble na yung kay VP Lenny. Kahit triple o mag-quadruple yan, bitin pa rin. So that may be a challenge for you guys.
I think yes, it's a big challenge for us. But remember, even historically, we've had presidentiables that have skyrocketed in campaigns before. But what is important here is that usually how campaigns turn out is really totally different. Once the campaign season starts, the energy shifts, and really people become more critical of what they want to hear and what they want to be able to understand. Right now, a lot of these are impressions, and I think a big part of it really is the budget of the Marcos camp with social media. Kung titingnan po natin yung kanilang social media, overwhelming yung kanilang spending sa social media. But then again, this can really be shift when it comes to the campaign season.
Speaking of the campaign season, could you just remind us, or at least tell us how you look at it and your calculations of it? What are the major things that come into play once February kicks in na hindi pa natin nakikitang humahampas ngayon? Whether it's for your candidate, but let's be fair also, for all other candidates.
Yes.
Yes. Well, I think by the time that the official campaign period comes in, our organization would be far stronger. We would be more. We would have probably organized all our volunteers all over the country much better. Actually, the challenge now is really the organic growth of the volunteers all over the place, and they've been doing their own caravans, lugawan, and all other interventions that participation. And they really, you need to harvest that energy. But that has to have a great organization that goes with it. So we are in that process of strengthening the organizational campaign. And then eventually, by the time the official campaign period kicks in, we are quite far stronger than we are now.
Go ahead.
We would like to also stress that, just a few months ago, Sarah was really number one. And things really shift very fast. Lenny was at number 8, and things can shift very fast. But Arnel Attorney Arnel is very correct. Right now, the Lenny campaign is in a consolidation mode with all the volunteers. We're trying to organize ourselves, different teams coming from different offices, coming together and really grounding ourselves in the different areas.
Speaking of, trying to make up for lost time, nabanggit nyo nga po na dihado kayo sa social media, everybody else had a head start. Over the past few days, there's been frenetic, even frantic activity on the side of opposition candidates. Now, follow nyo naman kami. We have to have 100,000 followers. I mean, speak to that on the level of how much further you have to go when people are still trying to just get to 100,000, and what does that actually unlock? And do you actually think that given the millions of followers for other candidates, that that will actually make up any of the gap that you're desperate to close?
Well,
Yeah,
go ahead, Attorney Arnel.
Yeah. Well, marami kasi na volunteers na they just do their thing, and then parang, for example, yung pag-subscribe sa YouTube or sa pag-follow sa YouTube channel, nakaligtaan, no? But everyone just simply get excited. Then when, for example, Senator Chel Jokno's YouTube channel immediately jumped from 200,000 subscribers in a matter of hours when the call was made. So, yes, we understand the survey that we need to do a lot of work, but I think with a deliberate effort and a very much more organized machinery on the ground that we are now laying and creating, then we could create a more deliberate and targeted effort, no? Parang we are better organized na itong mga volunteers na ito kung anong dapat gawin.
Do you think it's possible? Do you think it's possible that there's actually something missing in the message of the Lenny Kiko campaign?
Yes, we are very sensitive. We are very sensitive to that. Actually, we have to listen very carefully to what people are saying, even our critics, and even to our adversaries. No, what they're doing. So for us to really win this, we need to have a lot of humility in understanding the gaps that we need to fill. No, and that is being done by the entire campaign team.
The key message of VP Lenny, the start of the narrative really just came out just this week. And I think people have seen it in the videos. Many of the billboards, for example, that we release, that's actually under me, are key visuals only, if you notice. This is the image of VP Lenny and Senator Kiko for 2022. And really, that is one part, very deliberate, because the messaging that we want to create is number one, has a lot of integrity. And I think that's where this campaign really orbits around, the integrity of the people that are running, the integrity of the people that are volunteering, and that are fueling the volunteers in campaigning for Lenny Kiko win. Now, that is very key, I think, Ed, kasi pag integrity yung ating tinatakbuhan, lalo na nga pag nagkaroon na ng kampanya, mas critical na yung mga tao, mas sensitive yung mga tao, sinasabi nila yung katotohanan, lilitaw at lilitaw. At yung bumubukol, bumabalik, di po ba? So, we're very keen on that in the way the messaging will go. That's why there's a lot of to and fro's in crafting the messaging. And this will be a narrative. And this will, and what we can say, all I can say, and I don't want to preempt the comms team, and this was already presented to both Arnel and myself, that the key messages are really very grounded to the key issues that the country is facing right now. And that is the COVID, di ba yung una, yung kaligtasan sa COVID, nilabas yun. The hunger, the joblessness, these are very key and critical issues that the country face and that has affected a lot of lives. If you look at the other side, no, what has Marcos done in these kinds of issues? So they will be propelling a lot of the narratives on social media, but we need to go back. The campaign goes back to our core strength. And I think Arnel is very, very correct in saying that's where we are consolidating in our core strength, which is integrity in the performance of VP Lenny, in the integrity of the campaign, as well as the volunteers.
Okay, we'd like to say thank you to Mr. Jeff Lorenzo and Attorney Arnel Casanova of the Kaya Natin Movement. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us tonight.
Maraming salamat, Ed.
salamat.
More power to you and to your show.
Ingat po.
Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat.
Okay, and as we said, we brought in the Kaya Natin movement because of an earlier post by Mr. Harvey K.
Baka naman yung mga guests natin maybe they know this survey that we're talking about.
Okay.
Baka lang baka lang.
Well, let's bring in our favorite political scientists, Sir Dindo Manhit and Professor Edmund Tayo. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for the invitation.
Professors, of course, we're all waiting for the fourth quarter survey, although we've been hearing snippets here and there unofficially, of which we cannot quote from yet because it's still all unofficial.
No, it does not exist, the fourth quarter survey.
But anyway, sir, sige, let's not talk about the survey yet because it's not yet there officially. But if you look at the images, the video, the footages, the photos, well, mukhang substantial din ang support na nakukuha ni Mr. Marcos. Not just in Metro Manila, but in a lot of other places. I'd like to ask you, what do you think accounts for, given all the controversies he's been facing, the past, the present controversies, and the future controversies, what accounts for this apparent lead? Again, I'm not yet even talking about the surveys, but what accounts for this apparent lead? Yes, it's still early in the game, but it's quite an apparent lead.
Ed?
Well, okay. I can go first. No. Well, unang-una, it's really, to my mind, the kind of politics that we have. I've always argued there's no such thing as bobotante. No? Mga tao talagang inaaral hanggat maaari, no? With the little information that they have. To be fair with former Senator Bongbong Marcos, and I've seen him work in the Senate, and I can very well say he's really a good senator. But each time that the issue of the past, the issue of the father comes out, medyo nahihirapan talagang sagutin yung issue na yan. No? Pero just to give you an idea, to be objective about it, if you remember, I don't know if you noticed this in social media, the explanation of the source of the Marcos wealth, which is originally the Yamashita treasure.
Yes, sir. And the
has
Italiano gold?
now been changed to, was this an apparent former client, no, of the late Marcos Sr.
Sir, the Italiano gold. That's Italiano. The Italiano.
That's right. No, but this was also denied, no, contradicted, no, by no less than the former Senator Bongbong Marcos himself. So, in other words, I mentioned this kasi if I'm going to imagine myself in his shoes, nahihirapan siyang kumbaga i-reconcile yung pangangailangan na maisara yung issue na yon. But at the same time, he is also seen by the people, no, as quote-unquote an alternative candidate, perhaps because they might have already seen so much of the familiar faces already, no, in our politics. Ang problema kasi, gustong-gusto nating mabago yung klase ng politika natin, pero wala naman tumataya sa pagbabago ng sistema. Yun ang problema dyan. So we always complain about this use of substitution. Yung binanggit ninyo kanina na bagong resolution ng COMELEC, for example, na kailangan magkaroon ka ng 100,000 followers para magkaroon ka ng tawag dito, yung account mo ay maging validated na account. Alam mo, kahit na-validated yung account mo, this is not going to help control the trolls, no? In fact, there are so many regulations already as far as elections is concerned. Even the campaign period cannot be fully implemented, no, by the Commission on Elections. So clearly, the problem here is the kind of politics. I don't even call it system anymore. no? Kasi yung bastardization na tinatawag natin, it's just nandyan na yan nung simula pa lang. Ngayon lang natin nakikita yung full limitations niya. So, yun, hanggat hindi natin binabago yun, we can always complain about lack of resources and everything. But all of this will just go back to square one.
Indo?
Yeah, on my end, we continue to track voter preferences. That's why I know for a fact that there's no Pulse Asia or social weather station yet. But in our tracking last October and October, we noticed there are no controversies against Senator Marcos from a voter point of view. That means our views might simply reflect a minority. And that's where the challenge is. We have allowed maybe a narrative to prevail, especially on the top 3 characteristics that we tracked as early as June. This was our 3rd survey already. When we added the next question, to whom do these top 3 personalities does it apply to? And I'm referring to pro-poor, honest and trustworthy, and not corrupt. Marcos was way ahead of VP Leni Robredo.
But Dindo, let me try to reconcile what you just said with your earlier statement na walang controversy associated to him. You talk about trustworthiness and honesty. He's been openly exposed as, not being...
Voter perception. That's why it's not Dindo one speaking. I'm quoting.
I know. Yeah, but
how voters see him.
Yeah, but that's my point. It played out on mainstream media. It played out on social media. All the questions about his non-existent college degrees, to tax evasion, and then to President Duterte with that innuendo about being a cocaine user and so on. I know what you're saying, that ultimately it redounds to public perception. I guess my question is, why is that not entering the public perception? It's not only mainstream media, it's President Duterte himself who raised those questions.
Number one, mainstream media is losing out on social media. That's a reality, and we need to really take that as a wake-up call for everyone, because imagine if they will shape the result of the election. On the part of President Duterte, there's a saying in political communication, you need it to keep on saying it. If you've noticed with President Duterte, after a week, he has gone quiet. That's why I've always viewed it differently. Maybe it was simply even a campaign support for Marcos. Inoculate him on this issue. Throw it out, and suddenly it's out there. No?
And then it doesn't stick.
Now there's no candidate for the president, because I've always believed it's Marcos and Sara Duterte who is his candidate. But the reason I pointed it out, Robbie, initially, is that is something that is now a challenge to the campaign of VP Leni, that it's good to project the initiatives, what you consider as good characteristics of VP Leni, but there's also an opportunity for them to define the other side and really raise those issues and question how come those characteristics. In those characteristics of ours, number 7 or 8 was West Philippine Sea. Do you know that Marcos was number 1 in terms of fighting for West Philippine Sea? And that's an issue that I'm familiar with, and I've not seen him say anything on that. But maybe on social media, a narrative is being said that we cannot really monitor, because it's hard to monitor social media.
Ami Pamintuyan is back from...
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Balikan ko yung withdrawal ni President Duterte from the Senate race. Sabi ng iba, it turns him into a lame duck now, although the President of the Philippines has enormous powers. No? And sinasabi ng iba, you will never be a lame duck actually until after the elections. You think that's a valid observation? And what will the impact be of any lame duck status on his endorsement power?
I don't think he's a lame duck, Ami. He controls enough resources and power that can be put to use for his candidate, which is Marcos and Sara Duterte. With all the drama that we have seen, it simply confuses everyone, but it's quite clear where the direction would be. If it's not he still has influence over decisions of COMELEC or courts, maybe indirectly, or so given the court cases against Mr. Marcos, that when you talk to even independent lawyers, people will say that there's validity to the petitions. But we know that that's where the lame duck question might come in also. Will it be decided independently or with some influence coming from the president? So a lot of variables still. That's why I consider him still a powerful individual that can shape the result of the election.
Mr. Tayaw, you agree with that observation?
Well, first we have to define what we mean by lame duck president. And the way I understand it, it's called lame duck because, a sitting president could no longer do significant action or pursue significant initiative, no? Wala nang major legislation na pwede mong ipasa dyan. Of course, in terms of resources, he's still a sitting president and therefore can still make full use of these resources. Now, with respect to the control of different agencies, including election-related machineries or agencies for that matter, we've seen all outgoing presidents and administrations, no, with the same assumption, no, that they have all these resources and everything. But as it turns out, hindi din naman nagamit ito ng to the advantage of the administration, especially if the numbers are so overwhelming, no? Hindi mo pwedeng sabihin na ito ay magagamit, no, to favor a particular candidate.
Yeah. In fact, with the exception of Cory Aquino, lahat ng in-endorse ng previous presidents tayo, no? Speaking of that din, no?
Yeah, but that's why on my end, but this president is totally different. This is a president who has really maximized the use of his presidential power in this past 5 years. So that's why I would put respect on his capacity. Even the game that they have played, he's running, not running, Bongo not running. If we simply focus on who the candidates are and set them aside, maybe there will be other issues that we should be raising instead of Duterte not running, Bongo not running. But that's for me, is part of the power and the game that they play, the way they have shaped the discourse sa election natin.
Okay, now what does all of this mean for the other people running against Bongbong Marcos for president? Isko, Vice President Leni Robredo, Ping Lacson, Manny Pacquiao?
For me, I don't talk about Senator Ping and Manny Pacquiao. They've not really done well. With Isko Moreno, it's really a blunder on his part in terms of trying to position himself initially as an independent a few months back, quite critical of government. That's why his survey rose and suddenly, past 2 weeks, seeking the endorsement. That's confusing to the public. And that's, I don't know where that comes from. No? But with VP Leni, at least now, I think they just need to really focus that true Duterte is there, but their opponent is Marcos. So how do you compete with the personality, with the image or the perception of the public vis-a-vis Marcos, and concentrate on that?
To that point, Professor Tayaw, kanina, we were asking officers of the Kaya Natin movement, over the past couple of months, has there something actually been missing or for that matter wrong in the messaging of the Leni campaign so far?
Well, nung una pa lang na pag-uusapan natin yan, no? There have been so many explanations already why the numbers have not been picking up. Apparently, this is way before the filing of candidacy in last October. And of course, we already have, presumed candidates at that time. And a number of times they were asked, no, bakit hindi nagpipick up yung numbers ni VP Leni? And the answer simply is, hindi pa daw siya nag-declare at hindi pa daw siya umiikot. Actually, lahat ng mga umupong vice presidente no mga nakaraang halalan, no, ay ang assumption ay tatakbong presidente. So hindi mo kailangan mag-declare. at hindi mo rin kailangan mag-ikot at magpakilala sa mga tao at magsabi na ikaw ay tatakbo, precisely because you're already presumed, no, to be a candidate. So nung umpisa pa lang, meron na sigurong problema doon sa messaging, and I'm sure, of course, you encountered so many of these supposed messages coming from the Vice President herself, and it's being played on social media, but different memes for that matter, no, suggesting that kulang sa content, no, or kulang sa depth, so to speak, yung mga messaging ng pangalawang pangulo, no. Subalit, katulad nung nabanggit ko kanina, kaya yung sagot ko diyan sa numbers ni former Senator Bongbong Marcos is well, unang-una, no, I'm inclined to think that even if, let's say for the sake of argument, the president is really cunning, a political animal that he is, and he really is such expert political animal. Pero hindi nag-play out dito eh. Yung supposed plano, actually, kaya nga hindi na nagtuloy ito si Senator Bongo, is precisely because they simply have two different and conflicting plans. In fact, nakita natin to doon sa filing mismo. No, the president mentioned that the candidate for president is going to be Mayor Inday Duterte, and the vice presidential candidate is Senator Bongo, which of course categorically was denied by Mayor Inday Sara Duterte. And yun na, nangyari na yung nangyari na biglang ang magkatandem ay si former Senator Bongbong Marcos at si Mayor Inday Sara Duterte. So, in terms of consolidation, there's also a problem of consolidation as far as the administration side is concerned. No? So, to my mind, we cannot deny that all of these issues that we're seeing, whether it's something to do with the campaign, something to do with the lack of messaging or substance for that matter, it's a question of system. No, kung meron tayong mga tunay na political party, hindi na-bet na natin nung una pa lang itong mga kandidato natin, pero hindi nga po ganoon ang nangyari. And beforehand, the messaging could have already been well planned, and that we could have already heard enough, no, for us to really gauge the capacities and the plans of our different candidates. Pero wala ngang ganon. And sad to say, wala rin namang nagpipick up ng issue ng tunay na pagbabago, na system change. So all of them would say, I will bring real change. But when you ask for concrete proposals, walang ganon. No?
Dindo, before you were talking about, when talking about the support for Bongbong Marcos, you always referred to the findings of a substantial portion being defined by soft support. Is it still soft, even if we will lay credence to some of this chatter that it may be soft, but it's still growing?
Yes, it's growing, and it's really dangerous. I think everybody's talking about a survey that really spread socially, not social media, but socially, because there was a party, a political party that had a gathering last Thursday and to discuss this result of their own internal survey where there's a 58 number mark. And I respect the pollster, and I believe that survey could truly reflect, because it's a survey that it's my third source of survey. So 58 could be that number now. So I'm waiting for where Pulse and Social Weather Station is. That for me is quite a big jump. And especially if that number will also reflect in the coming surveys, because there you see VP Lenny going down, which is my fear on our October survey, that the 17 or the 18 might just be a big jump and suddenly it settles downward. So it tells people that you need to really work harder, no? And maybe a lot of the initiatives of the camp of VP Lenny has failed really to convert, because before you can convert, you need to also weaken the other side. And there's really been no attempt to weaken, or groups to weaken. I'm also referring to the camp of Isko Moreno. Nobody has really offered themselves different from Marcos, was done successfully well in projecting himself be it among us, it might not pass certain standards of truthfulness or factfulness, but it's working. That narrative is working. Voters, and that's dangerous. So I hope we don't see that same number by February, because that for me suddenly becomes a strong support already. When you see 2 surveys or 3 surveys consistently at that number, that high number.
Pero Mr. Manhita, all this talk in the last few months about all these issues against Mr. Marcos, this is not enough to weaken his support base, you think?
No, you have not made a dent in his social media following. Just when you talk to respondents, they quote not newspapers, they quote YouTube, and these are social class B. So the pandemic has really brought access to these people on YouTube, and a lot of clickbaits, because we have studied it internally in our institute, that how you try to track it, you keep on receiving this narrative.
Yeah, but you
multiply that to millions. So we see just in one social platform, media platform, 3 million followers daily sharing this narrative, with the 26 million of Sara Duterte.
But to your
of the
point,
unit team.
But to your point, Dindo, actually, frankly, the opposition will simply just have to work harder. But even if they work harder, if it didn't work in these past months, why would it? What would be the difference maker for it to actually work in the final months heading to May?
I don't. For any campaign, you should not give up. No? Hard to discuss that in public TV, but what really does not work is you cannot offer yourself as the better candidate if the public does not see you as the better candidate. That's what I'm saying. That's why it's good to have, and I think they have that. That's why I've always believed any campaign should always start not with their own assumption, but what the public assumptions are. And that's where the mistake is. You offer yourself as the most trustworthy, the less corrupt, but survey tells you that's not it. That's the problem. You project yourself, you're the most pro-poor, but the public does not accept that. That's why every time I used to be asked, when I used to run campaigns, is the first thing I tell a candidate, fund my surveys. Because I don't like your stories or the stories of your friends, the stories of your party mates. You have to ask the voters themselves, because campaigns are about voters. And that's where the mistake is. Failure to understand the voters. You might not like what comes out, but you have to accept it and build a campaign around it.
Yung message lang ba or the platform ang problem? Are you...
No, it's not the... I mean, when you speak of platform, you're referring to
social
platform
media.
government?
Sabi mo, mas malakas yung sa YouTube and social media.
Messaging is more important. How do you communicate? Because you might be saying so many things. Kalaban mo is a YouTube. Like a YouTube, 30-seconder, 1 minuter.
Yeah.
So,
but speaking of,
it's a challenge of political communication.
But Dindo, following through on the question about platform, February, once official campaign season starts, then you have mainstream placements of campaign material. You have ads starting to air on television and radio. Is that a difference maker?
You hope so, or I hope so. But the problem with that is, what if the narrative is built in the minds of the voters already by the time? That's why when the news that, Google will not accept or YouTube will not accept ads, I said, why February?
Okay. Maraming salamat, Professor Edmund Tayaw and Dindo Manhit of StratBase. As always, maraming salamat po.
Thank you.
Ingat po.
That's all for this edition of the Chiefs. We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. Before we go, a reminder to our viewers, mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
I'm Mami Paminton of the Philippine Star.
I'm Ed Lingao, and we are One News.